Good afternoon. I'm Karen Holmes Ward. Welcome to City Line. Boston's Reparations Task Force is waiting for the results of a deep dive into the city's role in the transatlantic slave trade. Two teams of researchers are combing the archives to document the stories of the city's past. That as the Old North Church shares its own hidden history in an exhibition called Sparking Revolutions. And joining us now are Executive Director Nikki Stewart and Julius James, Visitor Experience Manager at the Old North Church. How are you both? Good. Welcome today. So Nikki, I'm going to start with you. Old North Church is probably best known for its role in the American Revolution, signaling in 1775 that the British are coming, So how did you uncover the stories that had been excluded from the church's broader historical narrative?
Yeah, so, we're a 300-year-old historic site, most known for one moment in history. And but we knew that we had a lot more to tell. And in the spring of 2022, Dr. Jamie Crumley joined us for a year-long research fellowship. And she really dug into the archives, many hours, combing the records, and working to rediscover the stories of some of the Black and Indigenous congregants from the church's early period. And we knew from the beginning that it would be really important to share her work, right? The value in research is when you put it out into the world. And so she created a web series. We put together this exhibit and the accompanying audio guide. So we're excited to share it with people now.
There's a lot of stuff there. Do you think that the history of the Old North Church is in any way going to intersect with the research of the Reparations Task Force?
I'm sure it will. Yeah.
Julius, so describe for our viewers what the visitor experience is going to be. Okay,
well, when visitors arrive at the church, they will enter into the sanctuary, and we engage them with a series of panels that are within these historic box pews. Now, they will walk through, and these panels will inform people about the church's history, its architecture, the lantern signals. It'll kind of tie together all of this along with living in colonial Boston. I mean, historically speaking, it was a very difficult time for the majority of folks. So it just gets people kind of interested and involved in these various histories, along with some even more complicated histories that would have taken place in this space.
What was it like for you putting this together as a person of color?
It was very interesting. I've been living in Boston for a few decades now. I think the majority of people visiting this place or visiting sites on the Freedom Trail don't necessarily understand that there was so much unfreedom on the Freedom Trail. The paradox of these spaces, especially Old North, it's not really unique. These spaces contained free and enslaved people of color for generations, and at the same time there were free blacks who were choosing to worship here. We're talking back to the 1740s, and we have records of these families who are living here and just trying to live normal lives, trying to build a community in this church, and also trying to do that with enslaved folks who are sitting up in the galleries right next to them.
Yeah, well, actually not right next to them, but in close juxtaposition to them. Okay. Just listening to Julius talk, I know that this exhibit focuses on Black and Indigenous parishioners in the church's early history. There was one parishioner, Beulah Speen, that has a very remarkable story. Would you share it with us?
Yeah, so Beulah Speen's story is one of the stories that Jamie was able to uncover and that I think really resonates today. So Beulah was, we believe, a Nipmuc and possibly an Afro-Indigenous woman who was born in Natick in 1743. And her birth record did not list her race, which is a little peculiar for the time, and might lead someone to conclude that she was a white person if race wasn't listed. But at the time of her wedding to an enslaved Black man named Sol Rogers, which took place at Old North in 1760, she was then listed as a mixed race woman. And then several decades after that, in the 1790 census, she, her second husband, and her children were all listed as people of color. And so we can never know if Beulah's perception of her own race changed over time, but we do know that the way that other people saw her and the way that other people classified her changed over time. And I think it really demonstrates that race was and continues to be a social construct, and that it's really about power and exclusion.
And so I must ask you, last name Speen?
Speen.
Connected to Natick?
We believe so, yeah.
So Speen Street in Natick was probably
The Speen family.
the Speen family. Okay, okay, a little hidden history there. So there's also one highly decorated pew in the church. It's called the Bay Pew. What can you tell us about its ties to slavery?
So the Bay Pew is very eye-catching for visitors who come into the church. It's the only pew that is decorated in the way that it might have been in the colonial era, and we try to bring folks' attention to it intentionally. This is a place in the church where we really lean into the interpretation of the church's ties to enslavement and enslaved labor. The proprietors of the pew were a merchant group called the Gentlemen of the Bay of Honduras, and they were given this pew in exchange for a donation of a shipment of logwood, which was a very valuable commodity, but was produced in really harsh tropical climates with enslaved labor. And so, that steeple that people look to as a symbol of icon, or a symbol of liberty and independence, was built in part from the proceeds of that logged wood.
Again, Julius, I have to turn to you. It's interesting to hear this history.
It is interesting, but it's not surprising. It's not surprising to me as a person of color. I'm under the understanding that a lot of these histories haven't been taught or researched, and Old North is doing a wonderful job pulling up these histories, as Dr. Cromley did last year on site. I think it's wonderful to learn this stuff, to learn that there was an active Black community at the church in the neighborhood. I mean, one of the oldest Black communities started in the North End, going way back to the late 17th century. So it's just nice to share this information with people of color who are coming into this place.
As a young man of color, how does learning this history inform who you are today?
It makes me appreciate living here, having the freedoms that, to roam around this city, to work and live, to meet and greet whoever you please, to live the way you want to live without consequences. Freedom is something people don't quite appreciate these days. It's taken for granted, but when you look into these histories, you have a little more appreciation for things that have taken place before you.
Sure. Nikki, is this history unique to Old North Church, or are other churches in Boston also examining their ties to slavery?
Well, I think that any historic site or church or institution that can trace its roots to the 18th century is going to have these same connections. But churches are blessed in many cases with good records. So we try to emphasize that, no, we're not unique. This was very common. And lots of other churches in the area are looking into it as well.
Okay, Nikki Stewart and Julius James, thanks for joining us. So the Old North will be open during pop-up tourism hours, I think you call them, on select weekdays this month. And we're going to have a link on our website, wcvb.com/cityline.